You sit in a room filled with voices, laughter echoing off the walls, familiar faces surrounding you like they always have. But something has shifted. You feel it in your chest, a strange heaviness that wasn't there before. You look around and realize with a quiet terror that you are utterly alone, not physically, but in a way that cuts far deeper. These people, the ones you've known for years, the ones who shaped your world, they suddenly feel like strangers, or perhaps you are the stranger now. You try to join the conversation, to laugh at the jokes, to care about the topics that once consumed you, but your words feel hollow. Your smile feels painted on. You hear yourself speaking, and it sounds like someone else, someone performing a role they no longer believe in. And then it hits you with devastating clarity. You have changed. You have grown. You have seen things, understood things, felt things that pulled you beyond the boundaries of this world you once called home. And in crossing that invisible line, you left something behind. You left them behind, not intentionally, not cruelly, but inevitably. Because when you evolve beyond the people and places that shaped you, you become unrecognizable to them, and they become unrecognizable to you. You feel it most painfully in the simplest moments. Someone complains about something trivial, and you can no longer muster the energy to agree. Someone celebrates something shallow, and you feel nothing but a quiet emptiness. Someone speaks with absolute certainty about things you now see as infinitely complex, and you realize you cannot even begin to explain what you know because the language you now speak is foreign to them. You have become fluent in a dialect of existence they do not recognize, and this realization brings with it a terrible loneliness. You wonder if you made a mistake. You wonder if all this growth, all this awakening, all this painful expansion of consciousness was worth the price. Because the price is this: you no longer fit. You no longer belong. You've outgrown the very ground you once stood on, and now you float untethered, watching from a distance as the life you knew continues without you. You may have heard the voice inside telling you that you are being arrogant, that you think you are better than them, that you have become difficult, complicated, too much. But let me tell you something with absolute certainty. You are not arrogant for having changed. You are not superior for having grown. You are simply different now, and that difference is real. It is not imagined. It is not inflated. It is the natural consequence of a soul that refused to stay small when life demanded it expand. The people who once understood you, who once met you where you were, they are not wrong for staying where they are, and you are not wrong for having moved. This is not a story of better or worse. This is a story of transformation, and transformation, by its very nature, creates distance. You did not choose to outgrow them. You chose to honor the truth that was calling you forward. You chose to face the questions they were content to ignore. You chose to feel the pain they numbed. You chose to see what they looked away from. And in making those choices, you stepped onto a path that diverged from theirs. This is not arrogance. This is survival. This is integrity. This is what it means to refuse to betray yourself, even when staying small would keep you safe, would keep you connected, would keep you from this unbearable loneliness you now carry. Dostoevsky understood this loneliness in a way few writers ever have. He knew what it meant to outgrow the world you were born into. He knew the agony of seeing too much, feeling too deeply, understanding too clearly. In his own life, he was exiled, Imprisoned, nearly executed, he stood before a firing squad and felt his life about to end, only to be spared at the last moment. That experience changed him forever. He could never return to the innocent simplicity he once knew. He had touched death, had seen the abyss, and when he came back, he was no longer the same man. And he spent the rest of his life writing about this strange condition of being awake in a world that prefers to sleep. What you are experiencing, what you call your greatest mistake. Dostoevsky would call something else entirely. He would call it the burden of consciousness. He would call it the price of refusing to live a lie. He would call it the inevitable isolation that comes when your soul grows too large for the life you were living. In his novels, he created characters who embodied this exact struggle. Men and women who could not unsee what they had seen, who could not unknow what they had learned, who could not return to the comfortable ignorance they once possessed. And every single one of them paid the price in loneliness, in alienation, in becoming strangers in their own lives. Think of Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment, a young man whose mind grew so sharp, so penetrating, that he began to see himself as fundamentally different from ordinary people. He convinced himself that he existed on a higher plane, that the rules that governed others did not apply to him. This was not mere arrogance. It was the logical conclusion of a consciousness that had expanded beyond the comfortable boundaries of conventional morality. He committed murder not out of cruelty, but out of a twisted philosophical experiment, a desire to prove that he had transcended the limitations of common humanity. And what did this belief bring him? Not freedom, not power, but crushing isolation. He became a ghost, wandering through the world, unable to connect with anyone, unable to sleep, unable to silence the screaming inside his own mind. He had outgrown the moral framework of his society, but he had not found anything to replace it with. He was suspended in a terrible void between what he was and what he could not yet become. Dostoevsky knew that this is what happens when you outpace your own integration, when you grow faster than you can metabolize the growth, when you see truths before you have developed the wisdom to carry them. Raskolnikov's mistake was not that he evolved. It was that he evolved alone, without guidance, without compassion, without the humility to recognize that consciousness without love is a prison. Or consider Prince Mishkin from The Idiot, a man so pure, so genuinely good, that he could not survive in a world built on deception and cruelty. He saw the best in everyone. He loved without condition. He spoke truth without manipulation. And for this, he was called an idiot. He was mocked. He was used. He was ultimately destroyed, not because he was weak, but because his goodness was too intense for a world that had learned to armor itself against such vulnerability. Mishkin had outgrown cynicism. He had outgrown the protective mechanisms that most people develop to navigate social life. He was too awake to pretend, too honest to manipulate, too loving to guard himself, and this made him unbearably lonely. He could not find anyone who operated on his frequency. Everyone around him was playing games he refused to play, speaking in codes he would not decipher, hiding behind masks he could not wear. His tragedy was not that he failed to adapt. His tragedy was that his adaptation would have required him to betray everything his soul was. Dostoevsky painted him as a Christ-like figure, too good for this world, and therefore doomed to suffer in it. This is the paradox. Sometimes your greatest evolution makes you least compatible with the world as it is. Then there is Ivan Karamazov, the intellectual brother in the Brothers Karamazov, whose mind was so powerful, so relentlessly logical, that it led him to question everything, including God, morality, and the very foundations of human existence. He famously declared that if God does not exist, then everything is permitted. He saw through the comfortable illusions that allow most people to sleep peacefully at night. He understood that suffering, particularly the suffering of innocent children, could not be reconciled with the idea of a benevolent creator. His intelligence became his torment. He could not stop thinking. He could not stop analyzing. He could not turn off the machinery of his own mind. And this relentless consciousness isolated him completely. He could not connect with his simple, faithful brother Alyosha, who found peace in religious devotion. He could not connect with his passionate, chaotic brother Dmitri, who lived through emotion and instinct, even existed in his head, trapped in an endless labyrinth of thought. And this made him unreachable. Dostoevsky showed us that sometimes the mind outgrows the heart. And when that happens, you become a stranger, even to yourself. But perhaps the most painful example is the underground man from Notes from Underground, a character so self-aware, so hyper-conscious, that he became paralyzed by his own awareness. He saw everything, understood everything, analyzed everything to death. He could not act naturally because he was always watching himself act. He could not speak honestly because he was always aware of how his words would be perceived. His consciousness had expanded to the point where it consumed him. He became a ghost in his own life, unable to participate, unable to connect, unable to simply be. He wrote, "I am a sick man. I am a spiteful man. I am an unattractive man." But his sickness was not physical. It was the sickness of too much consciousness, too much self-reflection, too much truth. He had outgrown the ability to live unconsciously, and he had not yet learned how to live consciously with grace. He was stuck in between, watching the world from his underground, bitter and alone, understanding everything and connecting with nothing. This is what Dostoevsky understood about growth, that most people never grasp. He understood that consciousness is not always a gift. Sometimes it is a burden. Sometimes it is a curse, because the more you see, the harder it becomes to live among those who do not see. The more you feel, the harder it becomes to relate to those who are numb. The more you understand about the complexity of existence, the harder it becomes to engage in the shallow conversations that constitute most of social life. You have not become better than anyone. You have simply become different. And that difference creates a gap that cannot be bridged by will alone. You can try to dumb yourself down. You can try to pretend you don't see what you see. You can try to laugh at jokes that aren't funny, care about dramas that aren't meaningful, participate in rituals that feel empty. But your soul will rebel. Your body will grow heavy. Your energy will drain. Because living a lie, even a comfortable one, costs more than living in lonely truth. Dostoevsky also understood something else, something that might bring you comfort in this moment of isolation. He understood that this loneliness is not permanent. It is transitional. It is the space between leaving one world and finding another. When you outgrow your environment, you do not immediately find a new one. There is always a gap, a void, a period of wandering in the wilderness. This is where you are now. You have left Egypt. But you have not yet reached the promised land. You are in the desert, and the desert is lonely. It is frightening. It tests everything you believe about yourself. But it is also sacred. It is where transformation completes itself. It is where you shed the last remnants of who you were and step fully into who you are becoming. The people you left behind, they cannot meet you here. This journey is yours alone. But that does not mean you will be alone forever. Dostoevsky knew that there are others like you, people who have also outgrown their origins, people who have also paid the price of consciousness, people who speak your new language. They are rare, yes. You will not find them in the places you used to go. You will not find them by staying where you are. But they exist, and when you meet them, you will know immediately. There will be a recognition, a resonance, a sense of finally being seen and understood. These connections are different from what you had before. They are not based on shared history or proximity or convenience. They are based on shared depth. And one conversation with someone who truly sees you is worth 1,000 superficial friendships. So what do you do now? How do you navigate this strange territory of being a stranger in your own life? Dostoevsky did not offer easy answers because there are none, but he did offer a path. First, you must accept the loss. You must grieve what you've left behind. The friendships that no longer fit, the places that no longer feel like home, the version of yourself that no longer exists. This grief is real, and it is necessary. Do not rush past it. Do not tell yourself you should be over it by now. You have lost something, even if what you lost was an illusion, even if what you lost was holding you back. Loss is loss, and it hurts. Let it hurt. Feel it fully. Cry if you need to. Rage if you need to. Sit in silence if you need to. But feel it, because only by fully feeling the loss can you make space for what comes next. Second, you must resist the temptation to go back. There will be moments, many moments, when the loneliness becomes so intense that you will be tempted to return, to shrink yourself back down, to pretend you are who you were, to rejoin the world you left. Dostoevsky's characters often faced this choice. Raskolnikov could have continued pretending he felt no guilt. Ivan could have silenced his questions. The underground man could have forced himself back into society, but they all knew, somewhere deep inside, that you cannot unknow what you know. You cannot unsee what you have seen. Going back is not an option. It is only the illusion of an option. If you try to return, you will find that you no longer fit. You will find that the gap has only grown wider, and you will have betrayed yourself for nothing. Third, you must learn to be alone without becoming bitter. This is perhaps the hardest part, because isolation can do one of two things to a person. It can make you wise, compassionate, and deeply grounded in your own truth, or it can make you resentful, superior, and cut off from your own humanity. Dostoevsky showed both paths. Raskolnikov's isolation made him cruel until he broke and found redemption. Ivan's isolation drove him to madness. The underground man's isolation poisoned him with spite. But characters like Alyosha, the faithful brother, showed another way. Alyosha was different from everyone around him. He had depth they did not have, but he did not use that difference to separate himself. He used it to serve. He remained open. He remained kind. He remained connected to his own heart, even when others could not understand him. This is the path Dostoevsky ultimately pointed toward. Not isolation for its own sake, but temporary solitude that deepens your capacity to love more truly when connection does come. Fourth, you must trust that this discomfort is purposeful. Dostoevsky believed that suffering was not random. He believed it was the crucible through which the soul was refined. The fact that you feel like a stranger is evidence that you are in transition. You are between identities. The old you has died, but the new you has not fully emerged. This is uncomfortable because you are supposed to be uncomfortable. Comfort would mean stagnation. Comfort would mean you have stopped growing. The fact that nothing fits anymore means you are being reshaped into something that will fit somewhere new, somewhere you cannot yet imagine. Your job is not to force resolution. Your job is to stay present in the discomfort, to remain open in the loneliness, to trust that this stripping away is making space for something more aligned with who you truly are. Fifth, you must use this time to deepen your relationship with yourself. One of the gifts of isolation is that it forces you inward. When there is no one to talk to, you learn to have conversations with your own soul. When there is no one who understands you, you learn to understand yourself. Dostoevsky's characters, who survived their isolation, were the ones who used it for self-inquiry. They asked the hard questions. They faced their shadows. They stopped running from their own complexity. This is your opportunity to do the same. Who are you without the reflection of others? What do you believe when no one is there to validate it? What do you want when there is no audience to perform for? These questions can only be answered in solitude, and the answers you find will become the foundation of everything you build next. Finally, you must remember that being a stranger is not the same as being wrong. Our culture tells us that belonging is everything, that fitting in is success, that being understood is the goal. But Dostoevsky knew better. He knew that the people who change the world are always the ones who did not fit. The prophets were strangers. The artists were strangers. The revolutionaries were strangers. Not because they tried to be different, but because they refused to be false. You're not a stranger because you failed. You're a stranger because you succeeded in staying true to something deeper than social approval. This does not make the loneliness hurt less, but it does give it meaning. You are not alone because you are broken. You are alone because you are whole in a world that celebrates fragments. Dostoevsky would tell you this: your mistake was not in outgrowing them. Your mistake would be in shrinking back down to make them comfortable. Your mistake would be in betraying the truth you have earned through your own suffering. Your mistake would be in sacrificing your evolution for the illusion of belonging. You have paid too high a price to turn back now. You have crossed too many rivers, climbed too many mountains, descended into too many depths to return to the shallow waters you once swam in. Yes, you are a stranger, but that is because you are becoming something rare, something necessary, something the world needs, even if it does not yet know how to receive you. There is a strange beauty in this loneliness, if you can find the courage to see it. It is the loneliness of the pioneer, the one who walks ahead of the crowd. It is the loneliness of the artist who sees what others cannot yet imagine. It is the loneliness of the mystic who knows a truth that cannot be spoken in common language. Dostoevsky lived in this loneliness. He wrote from it. He transformed it into literature that has comforted millions of lonely souls since. Your loneliness is not a dead end. It is a doorway. It is the space where you learn to hear your own voice clearly, perhaps for the first time. It is where you discover what you actually believe, what you actually value, what you actually want, stripped of all the external noise that once drowned out your inner knowing. This is the gift hidden inside the wound. And one day, sooner than you think, you will meet someone who recognizes you. Maybe in a bookstore, maybe in a conversation, maybe in a moment of unexpected honesty. And when they recognize you, you will realize that you have not been invisible. You have only been invisible to those who are not ready to see. The right people will find you. The right places will reveal themselves. The right life will begin to form around this new version of you. But it cannot happen until you fully inhabit this strangeness, until you stop apologizing for it, until you stop trying to translate yourself into a language others can understand. Let them be confused by you. Let them be unsettled. Let them not know what to do with you. That is not your problem to solve. Your only job is to keep becoming more truly yourself, even when that self feels impossibly strange, impossibly alone, impossibly far from everything you once knew. Dostoevsky's final lesson is this: the stranger is the one who carries the future. You are not behind. You are ahead. You are not lost. You are leading, even if you are leading yourself alone through unfamiliar territory. Every step you take into this strangeness is a step toward a life that actually fits the size of your soul. And that life, when you finally arrive at it, will feel like coming home for the first time. Not home to where you were, but home to where you were always meant to be. If this message found you in your loneliness, if any part of it reflected the strangeness you feel, tell me in the comments what it's like to be a stranger in your own life. Your words might help someone else who feels invisible, who thinks they are the only one, who wonders if growth was worth the price. Share your experience. Let your voice break the silence. And if you want to continue exploring these deeper territories of human experience, these places where Dostoevsky walked and mapped for us, subscribe for more journeys into the soul. Because you are not a stranger to everyone. You are a stranger only to those who stopped growing. And there is a community of us scattered across the world who recognize each other instantly, who speak this language of depth, who know what it costs to refuse to stay small. You belong to us now, even if you haven't found us yet. Keep walking, keep becoming, keep trusting that the strangeness is sacred. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having the courage to outgrow. Thank you for being willing to be a stranger. The world needs more people like you, even if it doesn't know how to tell you that yet.